We're all Mavericks.
Welcome to Mamish Mavericks.
With your hosts, Maynard and Tov Breslow.
We're Olim and Gerim.
And we're also entrepreneurs and marketers.
October 7th changed everything,
including the way we do business.
This is the show that realigns your business and goals
with your values and people.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mamish Mavericks. Today, we're joined by Abby Neuberger. Abby is the owner and event planner of Abby's Events. Thank you for joining us today, Abby.
Thank you for having me.
So today, we're going to be talking about event planning. Obviously, you're an event planner, community development, and your love for Judaism and Israel. But for right now, we're going to start off a little easier. Can you let our listeners know where you're based out of today?
Yeah, sure thing. So like said, my name is Abby Neuberger. I live in Potomac, Maryland, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. in the United States. And I work with my business in a variety of places within a 50-mile radius. So
cool. Wow. Maryland, that's really awesome. We're based off in Israel. It's definitely a very large time difference, but we'll work with the punches. So can you kind of first off walk me through your journey in your business, what role your values play in that journey, and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, big question, but I'll do my best. I grew up in a very vibrant Jewish community. I grew up going to synagogue. I went to day school through middle school and then went to public high school. My parents really instilled in me a value of connecting with people and hosting or just being in spaces with other people. And based off of everything that I was raised up doing and all of the work that I did in college when I was interning for different organizations or things like that, I really found value in bringing people together. And so when I graduated from The Ohio State University with a BA in Judaic Studies, I was thinking to myself, that's probably not the most marketable degree unless I was going down a very Judaic path. And I needed to figure out what I needed to do to make myself marketable. And so I did a lot of internships throughout college, which led me to figuring out that I wanted to work within the Jewish community space in some capacity. So I started working in the nonprofit space and was there for the better part of 5 years. And I'm trying to think of what to do next. Yeah. Okay. So from there, I was really involved and just hyper tuned into what my community was doing. As a young professional in the greater Washington, D.C. area, it was really fun to kind of go out and meet people and network and go to all these different events because there was always something happening. And I then started realizing I wanted to do this more and more and really plugged myself in and started living in a Moisha house in Arlington, Virginia, and was there for 3 years. So I started that in 2019, pre-pandemic, and was there from 2019 to 2022, which was a very interesting time to be a community leader and an event, host in some capacity. And so you learned a lot of what people need from a space, how to create a space, and what made you good at it, really, how your skill sets plugged into that. And I recently, at the end of 2022, I had moved from the Jewish world in the nonprofit space to a different nonprofit. And it ended up not being the right fit for me for a variety of reasons. And what I realized was I want to do something that I want to be doing. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad's an entrepreneur. My grandma's an entrepreneur. It's kind of the family business in a way. And they came to me. I was in this pivotal moment in my life. I was like, I don't feel like I have a lot of control over how I want my life to be looking right now. I was living in a space that was great, but it wasn't my favorite. I was in a job that I didn't really like. Also, the pandemic kind of took a hit of what I was doing for my health mentally, physically, everything was just kind of out of whack. And so what I decided to do was let's take control over the things that I want to be doing with my life in the way I see them being the right thing for me. And so one of those things was, what do I want to do for work? And so I had started applying to jobs in a variety of roles and not really feeling drawn to any of them. And my dad pulled me aside and said, well, what do you want to do? I said, that's a really good question. And after that, I had decided through that conversation, event planning is something that I feel very natural in and powerful in. And he said, okay, so give yourself a year, try being an event planner and running your own business. And if it works, great, you found something. And if it doesn't, you'll learn a lot of valuable lessons that you can bring into your next role. And so I started working in December of 2022 as my business entity. And so far, so good.
Wow.
So that's where I'm at. And it's like a long about way of saying being in Jewish community spaces, but also in nonprofits and learning a bunch of different ways to create community and event spaces led me here.
I love that. That's a beautiful story. I can relate to that. Growing up, my parents hosted a lot of random like friend and family dinners. And I just now I know how to host a Shabbos meal. It's just it comes so naturally. And people tell me, they're like, wow, you go all out. And I'm like, it's really nothing. I'm just doing what I love. And it sounds like the same thing that you're doing, is that you're doing what you love. And that's always the key to success.
Yeah, 100%.
So moving on, can you tell me more about your company, Abby's Events? How did it really grow from when you started it? Were there any setbacks in the journey of becoming a company and maybe getting yourself out there in terms of being seen by people who need your services?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Sure. And I think the key thing to note before I say anything is that I'm still very new. So I'm still learning as I'm going. I don't have everything figured out as much as I'd like to say I do.
Yes.
We're all still in this kind of growth process. And so the start of it was I decided that this is what I wanted to do, and I need to figure out how I wanted to operate. And basically, I was just kind of scouring Facebook groups that I was already a part of. If someone was in that space already, I was going to initially start asking to shadow people and work with other event planners and just meet people in the business to gain perspective of what they've learned and when they started out, what they wish they knew. And I responded to someone's post saying they needed an event planner. And it was someone that I tangentially knew through a mutual friend. And it was for her company. It was their 10th anniversary or something. And I said, that's something that I can do in my sleep. That's something that's not a problem. And so I decided to just respond and say, hey, I'm starting up my own business. This is what I'm choosing to do. Would you consider hiring me? And they said, yeah, let's go for it. And I was like, great. That's a great way to get started. So basically what the biggest thing that I've learned about starting my business is that it's all about networking and talking with people, because it's a people-focused business. I mean, the skill sets needed is organization and time management and creativity. And there's a lot of different things you need to think about. But the biggest thing at the end of the day is that you're working with and for your clients and what they would like to see happen. So it's really just about talking with people and networking. And since that's a skill set that I developed when I was working within nonprofits, and I tend to be a talker anyway, it's one of those things I felt very comfortable doing. And so establishing it was really more of, okay, as a company, what are the values that I want to uphold when I'm working with any client, no matter what the type of event it is? Because my philosophy is that every event is basically the same formula, just different content inputted dependent upon what it is. And so I'm doing weddings, I'm doing conferences, I'm doing bar mitzvahs, I'm doing Congress parlor meetings. Everything has a component that is similar. Everyone needs food and drink. Everyone needs a place to sit. Everyone needs the little details here and there, but the purpose of that gathering could be different. And how I wanted to conduct myself was in a way I can be the canvas that they can figure out how to paint, and I can show them the tools that they need, and in a variety of involvements, help them along their journey. And my tagline for my business is from gatherings to galas, because like I said, the formula is basically the same. Scope and content is what varies. And I've done events ranging from 5 people to 500 people. So I really feel comfortable in any space. And basically, I'm just building up brand recognition by posting online and listing myself as a vendor at a couple of websites. And a majority of my business has come from mutual connections, honestly. One chunk of my business is weddings. And a chunk of that is actually with a specific venue who by chance I ended up working a wedding at. And they saw how I ran the event. And they came up to me at the end and they said, can we hire you for the rest of our weddings?
Wow.
And that's how that connection happened. So it's really just about working with the people in front of you and being able to like manage expectations and work with people. But a lot of what I'm learning right now is that like running a business as one person is a lot more complicated than people might think because I have to
Yes,
be
for
every
sure.
type of role you would need. So I'm my own marketer. I am my own salesperson. I am my own administrator. I am my own like financier. Like it's all about me. I know that sounds really selfish when I say that out loud.
No,
more
it's a selfish game, you know?
yeah. So, I mean, I'm still in the learning process of how to establish myself the right way and continuing to work within that space. Like, for instance, I've only been doing this for about 14 months, right? I don't know everything. And what's great is that I have family members that know a lot more than I do. So I'm constantly asking for their advice and just talking to people around me and gaining as much information as I can.
Beautiful. I love that. I have 3 bullet points in my brain that I heard. First thing that you said was you reached out to people asking if they needed a shadow. I
Yeah.
think that when we look at mentorship is like one of the holy grails of like having a business. Like you can't learn how to
Yeah.
do anything without being next to somebody who's actually doing the thing you want to,
Yeah.
which I love that. I love that you put yourself out there and you were able to find somebody that, you know, needed your services and you needed what they had, which was expertise in some sort.
Yeah.
And another thing, we're talking about putting ourselves out there, you know, that leap of faith is always the scariest thing. Like when you're putting yourself out there and you're reaching out and you don't know what the answer will be, you're vulnerable. You're in a place of like, I don't know how this is going to go, but I have faith in Hashem that it's just going to work out and everything works out, you know? And the last thing I heard you talk about, one of the other things that really stuck out to me was about the values of your business and the values that you keep and try to show through what you do and what you love to do. One of your topics here that we have is community development. And I was just thinking that community, the people you surround yourself with, you want to have the same values as them. You want to be able to connect with them on a level that only you understand or you both relate to. Going into like the value sphere, can you tell me more about that community development and how you put your business out there in that world?
Yeah. I think when I was thinking about the topics I wanted to talk to you about, community development really encompasses a lot of what I choose to spend my time on, right? Like I think, you know, community development can be the people coming into an event space. It can be a greater community that you are individually a part of. It could be a society. Like the levels of community development are a huge range. In addition to starting my own business, I helped start a nonprofit this past year too, because I'm girl bossing very hard. And that's,
You go, girl.
and one of the things that I'm simultaneously learning through both of these processes is that like running a nonprofit and running a business are very similar things. I mean, how you're doing something is like the things that I'm doing in those two spaces are related, but very different. The community development aspect in that is like we're trying to help organize the Jewish community electronically, right? Like everyone's living online and we want to help better streamline how people can navigate their community. So that's what the nonprofit is really focusing on. And my business is focusing on people walking into a space and feeling a sense of belonging in that space. And for me, what's really important is I think you surround yourself with the people that help build you up and you can help build up as well. Like I mentioned I was a Judaic Studies major in college and I went to day school growing up and everyone's like, oh my God, are you going to be like a rabbi? Are you going to like marry a rabbi and be a rebbitzin? Like, is that like your life choice? And I said, no, I just, you know, I'm really fascinated with all of this information, which is great. But through that, a lot of the values and lessons that we learn from Judaism and Jewish community is this sense of responsibility towards one another, ourselves, and the world, right? And a lot of those foundational values I have as a Jewish woman in this world influence how I conduct my business and how I interact with the nonprofit space that I'm trying to help create, and work with my friends or work with colleagues or work with new people, anyone really. I'm not just focusing on Jewish events. I'm focusing on any event, but my Jewish values help guide how I conduct myself in business. And I think, you know, community development, it doesn't necessarily have to just be with one group of people. It can be for anyone. But I think we all need each other at the end of the day. And that's a huge part of how I think about how I think about making an event come to life, right? Yeah. So like an example, and a lot of my business is weddings because that's when people typically think about getting a planner. You're going to celebrate someone, and you're going to like a landmark moment in their life, right? Where you can like look back and like that's something you talk about. But you're celebrating this new union and this new entity in the world of this relationship, right? It's not the starting point, it's not the ending point, but it's like a bookend of the chapter of finding one another to creating what they're going to do for the world together, right? And when you walk into a space as a guest, you shouldn't have to worry about making that space nice or having it work or anything like that. And so community development, when I'm thinking about events, is really about the people attending feel like they're attending and they're not working. They're there to be there and present and connect with the people around them. So yeah, I mean, there's a variety of ways we could talk about community development, but it's something that's always top of mind for me.
I love that. I mean, right, like you kind of, with the events, building a small community there, right?
Yeah.
We, it's so funny, like as you're explaining the wedding, like the feel and the like walking in there and, that the guests shouldn't have to worry about that. It's so relatable because on my wedding day, I was so worried about everything that was going on. Like sometimes I would get out of myself. I hope that everybody's having a good time. I hope that they're being fed enough. And the cool trait that you have as Abby from Abby's events is that you notice that the bride shouldn't worry about that. The guests shouldn't worry about that. That's really, really cool. And I think building a little community there has to do with the tone of the room. It has to do with the vibe, and it has to do with the other people around and things that are happening. And it's really cool that you're the person that makes those things happen.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It's really cool. So moving on, obviously we're talking about tone, we're talking about vibe. What makes your events very memorable among your competitors?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really important that everyone who's making the event happen feels like it's a seamless process, knowing that it will never be a seamless process. I think that that's the biggest thing that people underestimate. Something will inevitably go wrong, not go according to plan, and you have to be okay with that. And that is something that a lot of people are not okay with, which is where I step in. And I say, okay, these are your vendors, or this is your space, this is your vision, right? My job is to make sure that the anxiety of having it come together is not on the host. The host is coming to the table saying, I'd like this to happen, and these are the things that we have in place. Great. This is what I'd like to see. This is how I want people to feel. This is the first thing I want them to do. And my job is to make sure that what they're communicating gets translated effectively to everyone that's putting on the event on the vendor end. So I think what distinguishes me from my competitors, and it's not something that we do differently because a lot of event planners do the same thing of like creating a production schedule and making sure everyone knows where they need to be at what time and what responsibilities they have. And I think the thing that I like to focus on primarily is that every single vendor feels like they are being seen and heard as well. And their role, however big or small it is within making something happen, is vital. So I think something that distinguishes me, not necessarily as the only one doing it, but distinguishes me as an event planner that people feel comfortable going to, is that the vendors that I work with feel like they're being respected too. My mom would always tell me like a good relationship, and she's talking about dating, but a good relationship has trust and respect. But I take that into every type of relationship I have, whether it's a colleague, uh, a friend, whoever. If we don't have trust and respect for each other, it's going to be a very rocky road. So if I can trust and respect you as your responsibilities are and who you're bringing yourself to the table as, I ask you to do the same of me. And if we can communicate effectively, anything that pops up, we'll be able to take care of, and it's not an issue. You know, it's not trying to minimize the gravity of anything, but it's making sure that people feel capable in every moment, no matter if it's going according to plan or it's gone awry. So that's what I like to focus on a lot when I'm planning something. Like, for instance, I have a wedding next month and the bride is having it at a bar, and the bar's setup is a little bit more rigid than we had anticipated. So I have to make her feel like it's all going to work out. Right. So then now my job is to work with the bar and say, okay, what's realistically doable to make this space look like this? And how much time do we need to make it look like this? And how do we move people here? What food is going to be presented when? Like, all of the things. And this bride is messaging me. She's like, okay, I'm getting like really nervous. And like, I don't know if it, and I said, my job is to make sure it happens. That's not your job. Like, that's why you hired me, right? Like, that stress of having it happen gets taken off of their plate. They can stress about their dress, they can stress about their guests, they can do all of that. It's inevitable that that'll happen because that's what they're thinking about. But it's not their job that day. So I like to say my job is to make sure that when you are coming into your own wedding, you can focus on your wedding. You don't have to focus on the caterer. You don't have to focus on the decorations. You don't have to focus on if people are getting their food. Those aren't things that you're thinking about. And it takes a load off. Inevitably, you'll think about it anyway. Usually people do. You were just saying on my wedding day, I was just making sure that I want people to eat. I want people to have a good time. Obviously, those things are going to go through people's heads, but they're not going to be the one responsible for them that day. And that is a huge load off their shoulders. So when people are coming to me and they're saying, I don't know if I can afford a full planning package, I said, even if you don't use me, I think the other thing that I value is that, like, I don't get hurt if they don't end up using me. Like, I'll have consultation calls and like, we'll talk about what they're looking for. And I always say at the end of the calls, like, regardless if you hire me, my recommendation is that you at least hire a day of coordinator. It will be such a value add to your experience of this planning process that you have no idea until it's over how helpful it will be. And I think I value that no matter if I'm getting the business or not, that I can help in some way.
That's amazing. You're like the wedding fairy godmother. You just come in and you wave your wand, and that's it'll be all okay.
That honestly, yeah, event planners are basically like fairy godmothers.
Yeah.
I like that analogy. It's great.
So moving on actually to marketing, what do you find is the biggest obstacle you're facing in terms of getting yourself out there? And how have you been able to overcome that?
Yeah. Everyone asks me for a website, and I am not a website developer. So that's, I think, been like my biggest hurdle. I've had a lot of people offer to help me build out a website, which I'm working on right now, which is great. But a majority of my business is from like personal connections or mutual connections and talking with people. It's not from being discovered online. Maybe 20 to 30% of the interactions I have for my business are coming from people finding me online. A majority of them are people have recommended me to their friends, or someone that I personally know has said, hey, she started up this business. If you're looking for something, go. Or they personally know me and they're like, I'm doing something and I want to use you because I want to give you business because you're my friend. There's a lot of that supporting each other as part of getting my business. But I think the biggest hurdle I have is that because I'm one person, I also know that I don't have skill sets for everything that I need. So figuring out who to bring into the process at what point has, I think, been my biggest hurdle, because starting up a new business takes money. And, I will be the first one to say that I'm not the ones getting like $50,000 contracts left and right. There are event planners that sometimes will only take clients if it's a certain dollar amount. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not at that caliber yet, but I mean,
Soon.
eventually, yeah, I'd like to get there for sure. But I'm starting small. Like it's just me. I don't have a team. This isn't something that I have employees for yet. So I have to figure out the best way to accomplish everything I want to do in what way. And I don't have all that knowledge. So I think the biggest hurdle is learning. Not that I don't like learning, but that I don't know everything. And I admit that, which is great. But it's because I don't know everything. It's a constant like, okay, so I need to do this, which then tells me I need to do XYZ. But before I do XYZ, I have to get to ABC. And then I have to, like bounce around and manage multiple things at the same time, which is a skill set in itself.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that a lot. Right now, we have an Airbnb space that I'm currently also managing. And it took me a while to get it on Airbnb. And before I even like pressed the publish button, like so many of my friends were just like, I have someone coming here that needs an Airbnb. I have somebody that wants to check out, your area and is your Airbnb available? And there was so many word of mouth references that just, thank God I was like, whoa, like maybe I don't even have to put this on Airbnb. I mean, I did it anyway, but it was just so cool to see the community, right? Like coming together and helping people. And on a larger scale, that's definitely the climate here in Israel is community and afdudes and coming together. And like you said, trust and respect. If I'm walking down the street, I see just smiling at someone, there's that like, we're here together. We're like trusting each other and respecting each other and we love each other. And so talking about Israel, like Judaism has been a large part of your life for, forever. Can you tell me more about your story, your journey?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned I grew up in a very vibrant Jewish community and a Jewish home. Part of that is that my mom's half Israeli. Her dad came here, met her mom, built a life here, but he had 6 other siblings in Israel. So a lot of my mom's family is there. And the first time we went as a family was 2002 during Passover. And if you know your history, that's like towards the end of the Second Intifada. So it was a very testy time to be there. And I was younger. I think it was about 8 when we went. And I vividly remember my cousins being like, yeah, so you're not going to Jerusalem on this trip, but you should come back. And so we're like, okay, that's cool. I mean, like, I have great memories from that trip. We did so many other things. We were able to do that. But it was like, there are certain things that you just like, that's a reality. And like, I just had to accept that. And then the next time we went was 2009 as a family again, met up with my cousins. We're just touring. But the first time that I felt as an individual in this world, this hugely strong sense of connection is going to sound very cheesy, but it was my birthright trip. And I went in between freshman and sophomore year of college. And it was the first time that I had to ask and answer questions as an individual and not as part of a family. And when I look back at my life before then, I realized that I was kind of like on autopilot Judaism of this is how I was brought up. It makes sense to me. It's not that I don't ask questions, but I'm not asking questions as to why this makes sense because it makes sense to me. Okay, cool. But there are a lot of questions asked on that trip that really made me think about why Israel and Judaism is important to me as Abby in this world, right? And it opened my eyes as to how big of an influence it's had on my identity. And so after that, I declared Judaic Studies as my major and I went and started interning and I started working for the community. And like, it was a huge part of what I choose to do with my time in my life. And part of my first job, I was working at the federation of my area and I was working in the young professional division. And one of the things that they did was they helped sponsor birthright trips for the DC community specifically. So I got to lead, I think it was 4 birthright trips within 2 years. And what was so cool was it was just, you're going on this trip with a different group of people every time. And even if you're going to the same spots, it's never the same thing because you're with a different group of people at a different point in your life, at a different point in time. There's different things happening. And the conversations that you have are vast and deep and profound. And I just led another birthright trip in May to June of this year. And it was with Maryland Hillel. University of Maryland, Hillel. And they, I think, brought, I want to say it was like 3.5 buses full of students to Israel on Birthright, which was phenomenal. And the questions that these students were having, I realized I was their age when I went on my Birthright trip, basically. And some of the questions they were asking, I found myself being surprised and also not surprised at the same time, because people have a varying exposure and experience to Judaism, right? And so I mean, I find it so important for me to feel connected to that, because it's family, it's history, it's tradition, it's custom, it's culture. It helps direct my view of the world. And after all of the events that started happening in October and everything that's happened since then, it's just been super important for me to feel connected, you know, and, going back to events and community development and Judaism and Israel. And like the reason why independently they look like they're completely separate topics, but you actually talk about them at the end of the day together, it's because I've seen such a vibrant wave of connectivity between Jews in the world. And I think that that's beautiful. And it's something that I aim to create with every event that I do for the people that attend that space. It's something that I try to do with a nonprofit that I've helped start up, like of getting people connected. And I think what Judaism and Israel brings to my life is a sense of responsibility to help people feel connected to what is the question, but connected in some respect,
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm hearing connection. I'm hearing giving back to the Jewish community by leading Taglit, which is really awesome. A little secret about me: I'm the success story. I stink.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you for being an amazing leader and giving back to the children. Like having the conversations. Like I remember the conversations and questions I asked my leader. I'm on this trip and I want it to just be my own. I want to start on a clean slate and just look at Israel in my eyes, not like when you're with your family, it's such a different trip. When you're with family that lives in Israel, it's like such a different trip. And I really love that. Obviously, I'm also hearing connection and responsibility. Like you said, after October 7th, I think that it's been very important for Jews to feel connected not only to one another, but also to God in some way and Hashem in some way, that they find the little amount of peace growing inside of them. And if we continue to make that grow, Bezrat Hashem, we'll have final peace and world peace in this world. So that's really beautiful. I love your story. I love your history. It's really cool that you have an Israeli parent. All my friends that had Israeli parents were always the coolest people. I'm like,
yeah, my mom like half Israeli, and I like to say half Hungarian because it's like a long story, but it's basically half Israeli, half Hungarian. And she's like, the energy that she brings is a very different type of energy than my dad, who's like, I think, second, third generation American. If it works, it somehow works. But like, the energy that she has is this like, new, like, let's go. Like, why is this taking so long? Like this upbeat energy all the time.
yeah,
is what I was brought up with. And so when I go, I just feel so comfortable because I'm like, these are my people.
Yeah.
Not just because they're my people, but like, this is how I know how to communicate too. Like, this is very easy.
yes, we're all connected. It's so beautiful.
Exactly.
And definitely as an Ola, like I find myself getting more and more Israeli every day. Like, like when I first moved here, I could never have an argument with somebody that cut me in line. But like now I'm just like, what are you doing? Like there's a lot here.
No. Yeah, I can do that now, and I'm not an alum. So I feel like if I went, I'd be like to the 10th degree. It would be bad. No, it's actually really cool. The last trip I led, I ran into one of the participants who also made Aliyah from one of the trips that I led. And he and I were just chatting, and I was like, how's your life? Like, what is going on? How are you doing? And like, just talk to me about it. And he's like, this is the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Now, it's not everyone doing this, but the people who decide to do it, like, it's this intense realization, right? It's not like, it's more than a calling. It's just like, wow, this is me. Like when you figure out a part of yourself and it just feels like everything has like fit and the puzzle piece has finally gotten put together, it's a beautiful eye-opening moment.
Well, you're always welcome to visit us. So if you come back.
Yeah, my cousins are asking me, "When are you coming back? Like, you were here this past year, and are you coming again?" Like,
Do you ever have any weddings in Israel that you've planned for?
so again, I've only been in business for like 14
Right.
months, so I haven't yet, but I'd be happy to do them. I mean, I think that doing a wedding in Israel, like, it's a very different scope than it is here. But, I would feel honored if people wanted me to do that. It would just bring so many parts of my life together, and I would be so happy to do it, which would just also better influence, the process too. Because as much as they're invested, I'm also invested in making it amazing too. Not that I'm not with my other clients, but like it's just that extra thing that would make it so special.
Yeah.
Every event is special. Every wedding is special. Everyone's got their beauty together. It's amazing. But yeah, I would be very happy to do that. I just haven't yet.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bezat Hashem very, very soon. And obviously, other than weddings in Israel, is there anything exciting coming up for you here in the near future that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's really cool is I've already got like 10 weddings on the calendar for this year in 2024, which is amazing. I am already talking about things happening in 2025, which is just another great piece of business coming to fruition that makes me feel like I'm on the right path. But honestly, like, let me know if anybody needs help with anything. I do have some availability. It's, I'm able to help, and I want everybody's event to be their vision coming to life, which is what a lot of event planners say. But truly, like, it makes me happy to see my clients happy. I'm very invested in their journeys too. Invest in mine, and I'll invest in yours. It'll be good.
I love that. I'll definitely let you know if I have any friends that are getting married soon.
No, thank
And
you.
I'll let
Thank you.
them know about the wedding planner fairy godmother over here.
Oh, yes. I'll be the Jewish Tinkerbell of the event space. It'll be good.
Amazing. So cool. Lastly, how do you define success? Whether it be professional, personal, spiritually, what does success look like for you?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think in any aspect of my life, I know it's success after the fact. I know that sounds weird, but you can define as much as you want what will make you successful. And when I say what my bar is for success, people are like, wow, such a low bar. But in actuality, it's a high bar. I think success is feeling happy and excited with the decisions that you've made, proud of the things that you've done, and also success is learning from the mistakes that happen. So I can't really say what it looks like because it's different for every person. And the thing that everyone talks about when you're talking about, like, let's say romantic relationships, are like, you'll know when you find your person. It's a feeling. That's always frustrated me because I'm one of those people that I need to understand how it works and like why I enjoy it and being able to articulate it. But what I've recently learned is that success in business, success in personal relationships, personal growth, any connection to spirituality, religion, people, anything, you'll realize that it's a success after the fact. And I think that that's a hard pill to swallow for people, but it's my view of it. And I think the thing that I try to do is I live by a quote by Albert Einstein, fellow Jew. We love that. He had a quote that goes, learn from yesterday, live for today, and hope for tomorrow. And if you can have your decisions based off of those foundations of like learning from things that have happened, being present, and being hopeful, I think you'll find success, whatever that is.
How inspiring. I love that you follow a quote by Albert Einstein. He's like, yeah, such an amazing, there's so many quotes from him that I was just like, is it gonna be this one?
It's gonna be that one? No, it's probably gonna be that one. No, oh, wait, surprise.
Yeah.
It's a different one.
And I love that analogy of that, it's success after the fact. That resonates with me because, when I look at, for example, if I'm davening on something, if I'm praying for something, it's not going to come tomorrow. It's not going to like magically get there. It's going to come in increments. And then once I've been praying on something for a while, then I look back and I'm just like, oh, wow, that actually improved, and my tefillah worked. I have success now. So that definitely resonates with me. So we're coming to a close here. But before we close, how can listeners find out more about Abby's events and connect with you?
Yeah. So website's not live yet, so I don't have anything like that. But I am on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm also on the Knot and Wedding Wire. So people using those platforms can find me. And I also use a website called bark.com, like woof woof bark. I'm listed as a vendor. So if people want to find me there, they can find me there. But website is to come this year. So keep an eye out for that.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
So as we close here, thank you again, Abby, for jumping on with us. I just want to give you a quick little bracha. I hope you have success in everything that you do. I hope that you have continued happiness and peace in your life and in your home, and that you continue to make people's dreams come true with their weddings and their simchas, and that you do it with as much ease as you do it. And I really, really wish you the best of luck and everything.
Thank you. Bezrat Hashem, honestly, like I can continue to do it. So
Amazing.
yeah, thank
So
you.
cool.